Okay. So good evening everybody and welcome to the Environment Facilities meeting on the 18th of September. Apologies, I do know that Councillor Creek is coming a bit later.
Yeah, late apologies from Councillor Creek.
Lovely, thank you. Interest and declarations of interest as and when. So if you think, you shouldn't be here when something's been discussed, you just need to leave the room. Item number 3 is the minutes from the 16th of July. So I'm sure everybody has read them. So we'll just take it for accuracy first. Was there anything inaccuracies that anybody noticed? No? So I'm happy to propose. Seconder, Councillor Slade, all in favour? Yeah, lovely.
Don't think so, Chair. It's nothing that's not already on the agenda. There's some actions for Councillor Creek, however, he's not at present, so.
Item 5, open session for the electors of Newquay, but there are nobody present. Did we have any written correspondence?
No written correspondence, Chair.
Item 6 is the Coastal Communities Project.
Yeah, so as per your pack, we had an email from the charity Time and Tide Bell, who are essentially looking to do an audio walk tour throughout Newquay, and they've expressed interest in positioning signage throughout that walk at key locations, and the two of interest to ourselves is the Kilcourt, and it's not listed here, but also the Hughes Hut. So what they wanted to ask this committee if you would consider is giving them permission to erect their signage in these two locations to essentially facilitate having their audio walk tour. They haven't given us really much more detail than that, I'm afraid. They haven't given us any detail about exact locations on the Kilcourt or the size of the signage or the designs of the signage, so we've asked for all that information. Unfortunately, we didn't have it for this evening, so it's really up to yourselves if you want to consider this now or if you want to wait in receipt of further information. It's entirely up to yourselves.
Councillor Slade?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's all, any kind of thing that attracts people to Newquay is great, but we do need to know what the signs look like, where they're going to be. I mean, they could be hideous, and I think it'd be good if you could maybe get to the next ENF and do a little talk through, a little presentation, so we know exactly what we're looking at, I think.
The Hubbocks?
I am not entirely sure how I do this, but I'm going to say that I've worked on the Time and Tide Bell project, and I feel like that's something I should say at this point. Not with this chap, not on signage, but I did a feasibility study to work out if it was possible to have a bell. Is that important for me to say?
A bell?
The Time and Tide Bell. So part of this project, I've conducted a study on. I don't know if that's an important thing for me to say at this point. I just won't vote?
Probably is, I don't know.
It depends on what context, really. So was it in terms of, have they got an app then, presumably? Is that how how this works?
So the Time and Tide Bell is an art installation that exists around the coast, and there was some funding was secured by Dicky. He then employed me to conduct a feasibility study, and he's employed this chap to do this bit. My bit is done and dusted and finito. But I just didn't know if that was one of these things I need to say.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say you've got an interest really at this point.
Okay, that's all then. Sorry and thanks.
Any other questions from anybody? No. All I'd like to say is the signs really need to be fabulous. And we've been really clear about the Kilcourt, as you know, Joe, about signage, feathers, A-boards. So really, I'd be very against any sort of signage going. We'd have to be really careful where it went because we've protected that. We don't want it to become just everybody can pop up a sign because they want to. So.
The other thing is the Hughes Hut's listed, isn't it? So you can't
Is, so
necessarily
that's
plonk stuff all over it
already
without...
presents its own challenges.
Yeah.
Realistically, that's going to be more tricky because the
Yeah.
railings surrounding the hut aren't even ours.
Right,
They
so
are
maybe-
part of the estate that manages that part of the headland.
Yeah.
Oh, is it Drew, do you think? No.
Yeah, so this all needs to be looked at because this is, yeah, when you said the Hoover's Hut, I was like, well, hang on. That's a whole kettle of fish. We can't.
We won't be putting signage on the hut itself. So I think, if anything, it would be the railings. But as I said, that's going to be a more, well, it depends. I mean, I think it is quite clear we wouldn't have it on the actual hut itself.
Thank you. I think also it'd be useful just to know the context of the project. So we're talking about signage. I personally have no clue what it's about or the context in which they're asking for the sign. So I think that would be really useful as well, if possible. Okay, thank you.
I was just going to suggest that propose that we defer it and upon further information until at least the next ENF meeting.
Out, of interest or,
Well, I think the main thing is obviously to provide an opportunity for the committee to provide some steer in terms of priorities, particularly maybe for ENF, or projects that could be linked to ENF that we can then take to GNR in the future to maybe focus on. And then there's a couple of things in there in terms of delegated authority and match funding that I know Joe is going to help me out on, that maybe we could get a kind of decision on today, which obviously are explained in the report. But if anybody would like me to go over anything or have any questions, I'm quite happy to answer them.
any questions for Kieran? No?
It's all good stuff.
So there is a recommendation, item 5, which you want consider and agree the following. So if you just read that and we'll then...
Okay. Okay.
Just before we do that, Chair, it's not necessarily in a recommendation in the report, but in regards to the match funding element, the RFO has recommended that the match funding for this particular trip fund application comes from the lights EMR. So she's identified £11,850 4p from the ENF EMR lights, 5,000 of which will be the underspend from last financial year, and 5,270 was already pre-agreed at July 24 full council. So she just wants to basically consolidate that, and that's your match funding for this project. As Kieran's already highlighted, there's a lot of projects there which we are now successfully got match funding for. Some really good projects in there. Kieran's done himself a disservice. He's worked quite hard on this, and there's a lot of projects, cross-collaboration with different service managers. So we've kind of pulled this together across different departments, working with BID as well, and that's kind of the thrust of this application. So most of these are now underway, and we have until the 31st of December to complete all these projects, and that's when the funding deadline runs out. So we are well on track for that. But what Kieran's looking at in the recommendation below, so the other two recommendations, is more about the process going forward. Yeah. So you've got a list of projects in the appendices, which is projects which are either part worked on, already completed, or a bit of a bit in the middle, and Kieran can elaborate on that anyway. And the second recommendation is more about going forwards. How do you want to manage the application process? Because it's quite difficult, as you can imagine, trying to achieve meeting application deadlines within a committee cycle. So essentially, that's the thrust of it. But yeah, I'll let Kieran elaborate a bit more.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so the first one is to look at projects. Obviously, at the moment, what we've done is we've gone to staff and talked about what projects we could use. We talked to some partners as well. We obviously had the steering group for Climate Action Newquay that was set up last year. So those kind of all exist on a spreadsheet, and then when funding comes up, we obviously see what criteria fits in terms of applications. So it may be combining some projects. What happened in the summer is the TRIP fund, which was kind of the final round of this SPF element, had a very, very short lead-in time, really short lead-in time. We kind of got to the point where we were discussing projects and talking to Cornwall Council about potential projects, but we still, because there wasn't a great explanation about what they were looking for and what would be successful. When they came out with the scoring criteria, actually worked out that we would work with bid, and we were successful with that. But it did throw up a kind of this element of not being able to get to council and get things confirmed. So where we have a short lead-in time, obviously, to have priorities already set, so things that we should be looking at in relation also to that is reflected in the corporate plan as well. Yeah. So we're reflecting back. So within the priority set, we are linking, referencing back to the corporate plan to make sure that everything that we're looking at is already in the corporate plan. So we're not going off script, if you like. But where we have a short lead-in time, that we have priorities already agreed, and then also that we have potential for match funding if we need it. So obviously for this TRIP one, it was a 25% match funding. So, yes.
So we'll vote on that. Joe, if, you wouldn't have to come back to us, you two would sort it out, that's in a sense, isn't it?
Okay.
So that's part one, so I'm going to propose that. Second, Councillor Wilton. Do you want to ask? Sorry. No, I'm just all in favour? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I didn't have my red light on. Item 2, obviously, is the delegated authority to the relevant director, etc., which you can see there. So I'm happy to propose that. If we have a seconder, Councillor Slade, all in favour? Lovely, thank you.
Thank you. Breathe, yeah.
Yes, sorry, Chair, and just the financial recommendations from the RFO for the match funding element. So that's the...
You word that, Mark, it's me.
Okay, I'll do my best. So bear with me. So it was to recommend to full council to release £11,850.04 to essentially facilitate the 25% match funding towards the TRIP fund application.
I'm happy to propose that. If we have a seconder, Councillor Trumbull, all in favour? Lovely.
Sure, yeah. So Anna has kindly joined us, is sat in the gallery. So you may, as a separate resolution, just allow Anna to speak on this item just before I proceed. So it just needs a proposer and seconder to allow Anna to speak on this item first. Thank you. So I'll do my best to start with, and then hopefully Anna can fill in any blanks that I've missed. But essentially, the soon-to-be CIC for the Crantock Community Garden is being tasked by Cornwall Council to enter into a lease for the area as part of their SIL fund application. So we had a conversation with relevant officers this morning, to see if there's any wriggle room, whether a lease was needed or not. They haven't backed down, unfortunately. They are still insisting that in order for the SIL fund to be secured and be provided to the group, a lease between them and Cornwall Council would be needed. What Cornwall Council have also requested is to give them further reassurance that the Town Council is a guarantor on that lease. So essentially what that would mean is if, for whatever reason, the CIC no longer came to being, the Town Council would then take on the liabilities of that open space. Given that it's mainly just soft and hard landscape, I mean, I'm not going to speak on Joe's behalf, but in terms of maintenance, I'm not sure how much, I mean, there would be resources needed, but it's low risk, I think, as far as we're concerned. So that's essentially Cornwall Council's requests, and there's a second element to this, which is the legal fees that the group would potentially incur to review that lease. So Cornwall Council will absorb their own legal fees drafting the lease. However, the group won't necessarily, I mean, I'm not going to speak on your behalf, Anna, but I don't believe you necessarily have the funds available to hire solicitors to review the lease. I did ask our solicitors today whether we could potentially have the CIC as a client under our retainer. They're not willing to do that. So I think the only other option which Councillor Creek mooted is whether the council would be willing to support the group in underwriting the legal fees to review the lease. So I think there's two things really to talk about here. The first is whether the committee is agreeable to be a guarantor on the lease, because I think really that's the first decision you need to make, because the second decision would be irrelevant if you didn't. So I think that's the first thing really to talk about.
We don't need to listen.
Ask, in terms of finance as a guarantor, what does it mean to us?
So there's no outlay for us. The lease would be reviewed by TOSAs under our retainer, so we wouldn't incur any fees. The only fees that we would ever potentially incur is if the CIC became defunct.
Okay. Any questions from anybody else?
Okay, so I'm not sure that it was mentioned earlier, is it, yeah? Is that the land is due to be devolved to Newquay Town Council in any case. It's on the devolution list, so it will be transferred, but it's not a priority, but it has been on that list for some time, so it will be in ownership of Newquay Town Council. So being a guarantor hopefully wouldn't create something that's not going to be there ultimately anyway. The reason that we're setting up the CIC is so that it can be a an actual body which is taking responsibility, rather than us as a group, a kind of community group, becoming legally liable for anything. So hopefully we've got that in place, we've got insurances in place, and it's just presenting being a guarantor. The question that was asked by Cornwall Council today was around the lease, was, they said our liability could be, if you didn't take out a lease, that if you stopped working on it tomorrow, you had all this money from the SIL funding, you didn't stop working on it, within 6 months, then it would fall back to Cornwall Council. I said, well, we've worked on it for almost 8-9 years now, and we've been working up to this stage. Why would we give up now? But they weren't really satisfied with that response, so I can understand that this is what they need now.
It will be that Newquay Town Council will become the guarantor for the... Oh.
Sorry, Chair. My apologies for being late. I was in another meeting up the road. But I thought this is probably an opportune moment for me to jump in, is it? Is that, or shall I wait? Hey, why not? So I think there's probably, I think it sounds like you're discussing the guarantor issue, and I don't think I have any strong objection. I don't know what Joe has said. Sorry, I've sort of missed that. I think the the wider issue around the Crantock Street. So firstly, congratulations to the Crantock Street Garden for securing £100,000 worth of grant funding for the Crantock Street Garden. Understand, though I understand it's frustrating, understand, you know, why Cornwall Council requires a lease for that level of infrastructure spend and the liability therein. There was some talk around the lease coming to Newquay Town Council as an option, and I think as I was on the meeting with Anna earlier today, and I think as I explained, and Joe was there too, that if it were to come to the Town Council, the reality of that is that we would then have to go back to the drawing board in terms of contractors that we would use. We'd need to go out to 3 quotes. The timescales would take longer, and ultimately it would cost more if we were to deliver that project than if Anna and her group would. The sticking issue, I think, over the whole lease, I think from Anna's perspective and the group's perspective, is some of the legal ramifications to that. And infinitely, I felt that a way forward, certainly cheaper for Newquay Town Council than taking it on, but whilst supporting this infrastructure investment within Newquay, would be that we work with, we do one of 2 things. We either underwrite the relatively small cost of the legal costs to review the heads of terms and give advice on the lease back to Anna and her CIC. Or, and I think probably the preferred option for Newquay Town Council would be to utilise the solicitors that we already have in place on retainer, TOSers, to do that work and liaise with Crantock Street Garden to get over that hump, and essentially then the lease would go to the CIC that Anna and her group would set up, and we can sort of guarantor some of that. But it largely takes a lot of the responsibility, liability and cost that we would face if, because obviously we don't want to lose £100,000 of investment in Newquay. And so I think, you know, I don't know whether I can add it as a proposal. Joe?
No, sorry.
What's new?
Whilst you were out the room, I have discussed this with our solicitors, and unfortunately they wouldn't be able to act or have the CIC act under our retainer. They will review our guarantor element of the lease for free under retainer, so that our costs won't be there. So I have reviewed certain budgets which, if you're minded to, you could use to support this. So Anna might correct me, but the quotes we've received so far from solicitors for reviewing a draft lease and the searches range from 1,500 to about 3,000.
Yeah, that's right. And at that stage, we got some really kind of broad quotes from solicitors about 3-4 months ago, I think. So now that we've got all this confirmed and kind of clarified, we're going to go back to them and make sure that we've got proper costs, and we're going out to kind of 2 or 3 firms to clarify that.
So yeah, worst case scenario, you're looking at the 3,000 end. I'd be very surprised if it's anywhere near that. You've got another quote from Stephen Scowns, which is 1,500, which seems more likely. So there are 2 budget lines which aren't really committed. You've got an open spaces project general grants budget, 2,500, not committed to anything, and an open spaces community projects, sorry, they are very similarly worded, which is 6,900.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm conscious you were just about to go to a vote there on the guarantor thing. So did you want to deal with that before I then jump in and propose another?
We're doing them separately.
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
So we're proposing that Newquay Town Council become the guarantor for the community garden in Crantock Street. So I'm proposing. Councillor Slade, all in favour? Everybody. Funding for the legal fees. So from our perspective, Joe has explained there's money in the pot. The only question I would ask, would they have to apply, because you said it's a grant, would they have to apply, or would we just be able to say yes tonight before we take it to full council?
They don't have to apply in
Okay.
that sense, no.
No, that's fine. So I'll let Councillor Creek, because I can see he's,
Thank you, Chair. As always, you read me well. So then I'd like to propose that we give delegated authority to the Deputy Clerk, the Chair and the Vice Chair to spend up to, shall we say, £2,500 to assist in legal costs for solicitors for the Crantock Street Garden CIC heads of terms stuff.
all my funder, because, I was just about to say all of that.
Exactly.
So we were going to say up to 3K, my deputy and I, because that was the, did you just put finger up?
No, I did that, 3.
No, we're happy to say if you said 2,500. So you're happy to propose that, yeah?
Which of those pots?
I'd go for the community project one because there's 6,900.
Yeah,
in
I
that.
think, yeah.
So you're proposing, I'll second. All in favour? There we go.
Thank you very much. And can I just check on that? I'll probably speak to you, but do I need to then go out and get 3 separate quotes now that we've got clarity on where we are?
I would go back to your preferred solicitor and just make sure you get a revised quote that's actually
Wonderful.
what is going to deliver what you need.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everybody.
Don't tell the Newquay Town councillors paying for it because they might want to add something to
No,
it.
no. Community groups pay for it. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Item 9, and I'm sure I'll have to hand the chairmanship over to Councillor Creek because I'm sure he'll want to talk to all about it.
Very good. So as we know, we've got the fixed sum of money in the budget to, well, within EMRs, I think we've got Seal, and we've got some Boardmasters money to deliver this Mount Wise play area. So it looks like what we've got. Have I seen this? Have I seen it?
I hope so. You've had the agenda for a week.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't had a chance to look at the agenda, but I don't think I've seen it. But this essentially looks like a consultation, a public consultation for the Mount Wise Play Park, which will go out to the public. I'll also be doing some separate consultation with a number of the primary and junior school in Newquay, and I'll catch up with you, Joe, about that at some point. But yeah, so I guess anything that we want to add to it, anything that we feel we want to change.
Bearing in mind it's been in our packs, anybody got any questions or additions or are we happy just to propose, second and vote on it? Oh, Councillor Slade?
This consultation is just a consultation, isn't it? I mean,
See what they like.
see what they like, but we're not, no, good, that's...
Joe?
No, we're not bound. It's the same process that we did for Doorstep Green. So it's essentially to kind of tease out what the residents and parents in that area actually want to see from that park. And that will then form a brief for the tender when that eventually goes out. The only thing I just wanted to check is how long did you want the consultation to run for?
I think probably, sorry? Yeah, I was going to say 4 weeks, just give people a chance. If they're on holiday, they might want to come home and do it when they get home. Could I add a couple of bits? I think my initial thought would be presumably most people that will be filling this out will have children. It'd be useful to understand the age bracket of the children, or at least kind of are they infant, primary, or are they preschool, infant, junior age? Would be really useful to understand. And a separate question to that is, do they feel that their child's play park needs are currently met within Newquay? I know from personal experience, I've had a number of residents contact me very disappointed with the delivery of the recent play park at Trenance, as they feel that they've excluded sort of the junior age group, and that's really kind of for early primary. And so one of the things I'd really like to try and achieve this is address some of that gap in provision. So it'd be useful to understand if what I'm hearing from a number of residents is what the general feel is. So those two questions.
Can I just say on the document, it does ask for the ages of the children if you've got any? Yeah, it asks for the age of the person filling the form out. And then further it says, do you have children, care for them? If so, what are their ages? So that's already on.
Could we just change it to age groups then? Preschool, infant school, junior school, and just put the age brackets beside it. I think that's just a useful, rather than, yeah.
It was about ages of the children. Yeah, so same.
And mine's probably a really stupid question, sorry, but how do you actually run that consultation? Who are you targeting? How do they respond?
So it would likely go out on our social media channels. I think we floated the idea of having a in-person event in the library as well for anyone that just wanted to just drop in and actually speak to someone about it. So it would be a bit of a mix of hard copy and online.
And also we could use Nuki Radio because we've got a bit of a retainer. Okay.
Can I ask that we send things to schools? Maybe a form. I'm just worried that if we put the consultation out, we might get responses from those who are already engaged. And obviously our community is made up of a lot of people that aren't engaged, and I would be sad if they missed out.
That's the slate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was looking at all the options, but I just want to make sure that we're assuming that because of our biodiversity policy, that say they pick the space theme or whatever, obviously you're going to be, when you put a play park in, you're going to be taking like plants out, so that we do compensate, so that we, on top of building the play park, we also make sure that our biodiversity is increased with additional planting.
Include that in the tender. Right. So when you come to put that out to tender, you just include that in the scope of work, that whatever is removed has to be replaced somewhere else on site.
Yeah, cool.
So,
Sorry, my fault. When this goes out, will this be the format of this, or is what it will look like? And I say this not trying to be disparaging to anyone in particular, but I wonder if we could make it look more exciting in terms of using our brand guidelines and our comms officer to kind of jazz it up, some background pictures, some colour. I wonder, I mean, that doesn't sound like a huge piece of work to me, but
it's not necessarily that. I think it's just the limitations of Microsoft Forms, which is what this is on. So, there's other paid for platforms that you can use. You can use SurveyMonkey, for example. I don't know whether you can just sign up for a month, or I don't know. We've not used SurveyMonkey in a while, and I don't know how customizable that is. So we can look at alternative survey providers to see if it gives us a bit more of like an engaging consultation. I don't mind looking into that.
how about a poster, a nice poster with a QR code with lots of kind of graphics that we can give to schools to put up in their classroom windows and, up in the library, and maybe that's easier. Okay, let's go with that then.
So we're going with Councillor Creek's proposal, but we're also looking at the changes to the age groups and that sort of thing as well. I'm sure it will come out. What about the chat that we hold on retainer for Sean?
Yeah, he will be able to
Jazz
do
it
that
up.
design element of it,
Yeah, with the comms. Yeah. So happy to propose, Councillor Creek, are you?
Yeah, always.
Happy to second, all in favour? Yeah. Environment Service.
Nuki and Bloom.
Oh, sorry, Nuki and Bloom. I
Don't
wasn't.
forget them.
So obviously in your pack you've got a report from Councillor Thompson, who's our sort of councillor who sort of liaises with them. So I'm sure you've all had a look at it. Are we having to vote on the £1,000 that they're looking for, or?
I would just factor that into your budget decisions in October.
Okay, lovely. So we don't have to make a... So I suppose just one of the things is just to thank Nuki and Bloom because they do an amazing job. And I know they're doing a presentation for local gardens, etc., on the 14th of October, which I think is at St Michael's Church. And it would be nice if lots of councillors went to that. I know, you know, we do have time constraints because we've got lots of other things that we do, but it's just a shout out if anybody wants to go.
What was the date again?
14th of October, 7 p.m. Church is booked from 5:30, and I'm imagining that Shirley Williams, I don't know, says to organise the microphone, but who knows?
True.
Oh, Councillor Creek.
Surprise, surprise. Yeah, no, you're quite right, Councillor North. Sorry, I've forgotten your name there, Margaret. That was dreadful, wasn't it? I'm so used to calling you Mayor or Deputy Mayor. Indeed, we are being judged in the wider South West in Bloom, Britain in Bloom Awards in Torquay on the 8th of October, and I'll be in attendance there and hopeful to bring back a few awards. And indeed, you're quite right, the 14th for the awards at St Michael's, and I shall be there as well. You can't get rid of me giving a short speech and handing out the awards to the wonderful local entries. So thank you. And just very quickly on the £1,000, one of the things that I've been talking to the RFO and the clerk about is about partnership working moving forward. And so identifying a number of partnerships that we might wish to move into for the next fiscal period, as opposed to constantly asking the same groups to come back for grants. So it might be, and I think that's probably a GNR thing, Joe, but it might well be that this committee might want to recommend to GNR that that it considers Nuki and Bloom for one of its considered partnerships for 2026-27 fiscal year. Happy to propose that if you'd like me to.
Questions of Councillor Creek in regard to that, or we just have to go to the vote? No?
Yeah.
Happy to second. All in favour? Done, I believe. Now we're on to item 11, the Environment Service Manager's Report.
Thank you, Chair. This is a request or a recommendation to repair the seesaw up at Dorset Green off of the back of an annual inspection carried out by ROSPA. They've identified as maintenance is needed due to internal parts being worn. It is low risk. However, the recommendation is to proceed with the repair this year to reduce the hazard and costs moving forward.
So this did come out in an email, and I just asked for it to come to the committee because it was low risk, and I am a bit old-fashioned, and I do hate making decisions on emails, and we are a committee and we should make it as a committee. So I'm happy to propose that we release them up funding. I've got a seconder, Councillor Trimble. Yeah, of course you can.
Sorry, what? No, you couldn't. No. How old? I think reasonably new, this equipment, right? It's only a few years old.
3 years old.
What's the warranty on them?
I think for this part it's maybe 1 year, 2 years
Oh my goodness.
max. Yeah.
That's poor, isn't it?
Just,
Did we do that ourselves, and it was cheaper, wasn't it, than having Cormac?
it was, yeah, just
Yeah.
on that, the warranties vary depending on the components. So we have longer warranties on like the steel, which is about 20 years. So it depends on the components. Some have longer warranties than others.
Yeah.
Evening. So the completed works were the contactless is now up at Watergate. It's been mostly okay, but people have started using the showers as toilets, so they've now had to be locked permanently. Well, say permanently, until we figure out another sort of approach to that. The asbestos is done on the second floor, and the fixed electrical testing at Mount Wise was finished last night. So the only thing I've got to put forward is the radon. So the radon ventilation system in the basement requires servicing. I don't.
It's amazing what's alive, but yeah.
It's amazing how few companies there are in Cornwall that will deal with it, or even in the southwest that will deal with it. So I've only managed to get 2 quotes. One is £418, which includes the filters. One's £325 without the filters. Problem being, we have no record of it ever being done. One of the fans down there is sounding worse by the week. So it's surely better to service than replace. So I'd recommend using Southwest Ventilation because their quote comes inclusive of filters. Yeah, and they can be anywhere between 30 and 50 quid each. So.
For that. Any questions? Sorry.
Yeah, apologies. We didn't have time to get the finance report on IBABs for you, so it is just a verbal report for this evening. If you were going to proceed with the recommendation, it's just a caveat that because we were unsuccessful in the third quote, you just have to suspend your financial regulations because we didn't secure that third quote.
So, any questions? Yeah. Councillor Creek, Councillor Wilton.
Thanks, Chair. Just well done on the second floor asbestos removal. How far away from making that floor livable are we? Obviously thinking from a commercial standpoint, I often say sweat the assets, which always makes Councillor North laugh. There you go. But if we can open up that as a habitable space, that will obviously enable us to sweat this asset a bit more.
In all honesty, haven't even looked into it yet. We have issues arising with the roof as well, which may also factor in how quickly we're able to get people up there. So, yeah, there's a lot of things sort of up in the air. Yeah, we got at least one tile missing.
Sorry, just going back to the radon thing, and it's only out of interest. Are you saying we have radon here, or it's the preventative testing elements that are sometimes required under building regs?
From my limited understanding of it, being a basement, it is naturally quite a high risk area of certain, what's the word? Lovely word. Yeah, certain concentrations can be quite dangerous. So the ventilation system down there is basically to circulate it and then extract it.
Not the radon, yeah.
Yeah, a mixture of the two, basically. Yeah. But yeah.
So we're not. So it doesn't mean that we've got radon. It's just a precaution. Yeah. Only because, so in a new build, for example, we've just done a new build on the site where I am, and we had to do 6 months of testing to just meet whether or not we then needed to put in certain things. And I just wondered what it was that we were. Was it testing or systems or what it was really?
I'm not. The system down there is purely for ventilation and extraction. So if a system like that has been put in, I can only assume that there was high, proportions of it tested down there at some point. I mean, the vents are still running. It's running 24/7 and has been for who knows how many years. But there's nothing of any danger down there because it's only prolonged exposure to it that can lead to issues.
No, and I appreciate that. And what I guess I was asking, are we testing for a reason? And the radon bit, or is it that you're talking about repairs for the general ventilation system down there?
All right, no, sorry. This is repairs or servicing just purely for the ventilation system. So,
thank you.
I mean, just on that, this building's probably older than everyone in the room combined. So I don't really necessarily, we don't know the origin of why that ventilation system was put in. We can only assume, as Richard said, it was due to, I mean, I imagine the building's predominantly granite, so it's only due to clearing the radon so it doesn't filter through the top floors. We had the radon tests carried out 5 years ago, which were clear. We've recently, it's come around to the 5-year anniversary again, so oddly, alongside this, we're also doing radon testing now. There's actually one sensor above me somewhere, which we will then send back in 3 months' time, or about a month now. But alongside that, given that the unit itself hasn't actually had any servicing done to it that we know of, we just felt it was best to do it regardless.
Thank you. No, that explains it, and it's exactly those that I was talking about that you have in new builds. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, it was just to say thank you for the Watergate Bay toilet contactless installation. Sorry about the unintended consequence of people utilising the shower. The other one was to say, talking Watergate Bay, yes, please, to our own, is it our own world? I can't remember. Yes, for the additional third, in fact, our third water fountain. I think that's really exciting. I know the other two appear to be well used, and I'm sure a third at Watergate Bay would be very much welcomed by residents and tourists. So I don't know whether we need to vote on that, or yeah, I'm happy to propose that.
Second that. All in favour? Thank you. Vote on the radon testing and so I'm happy to go with your proposal of the southwest ventilation.
Yeah, with the filter. Not with,
Pardon?
the one with the filters.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Second.
Yes. All in favour? Thank you.
Thank you.
I hear about the Pentar Headland toilets, but we're going to talk about them in confidential, so I won't talk about it now. Anything else from you? Oh, sorry, Kat. You all right, Joe? Yeah, go on. Have you finished, Richard? Or?
No, that was it, pretty much. Well, besides we went with the partition door down at Watergate in the end, with the idea the gents has one door in and one door out, or you can use 2 doors exit. The ladies, if we'd blocked that wall off completely, that would have only been 1 door in and out. So if anything happened to that door, you'd have no ladies' toilets. So it was decided in the end to go with a door because, well, it future-proofs it, you got another exit, and it was a lot cheaper. I say a lot cheaper, it saved about £300. So we went for the door option instead.
Lovely, okay. Joe, you going to?
Yeah, so as is mentioned in the report, when the asbestos was removed, it has exposed an element of the rafters which appears to be rotten at the base. We don't know how historic that damage is, and it's not damp, so it doesn't appear to be something that is continuing. So I think our first step, and Richard alluded to it earlier, in regards to moving people to the 2nd floor, I think really we need to know the state of the condition survey of the roof. I didn't have 3 quotes to bring to you this evening, regrettably. I've had 2 quotes so far, which range between 795 and 1,800. So my proposal was going to be this evening, given that we know that the library roof was around 2,000, to get that surveyed, would be to give delegate authority to myself, Chair and Vice Chair, to spend up to £2,000 on getting a condition survey done of this roof. That will be the first step. Now, if there's any structural calculations that will then be needed for a scope of works, we would probably then need to look at engaging a structural engineer to carry out that. So I think the first step is getting condition survey, because we need to know what we're dealing with. And then, depending on the committee cycle, will depend on whether we come back to you by email or whether we bring it back to October. Because what I don't necessarily want to do is delay things if there's something that we really need to sort out up there. But I think the first step is getting a condition survey done.
This for Joe, Councillor Creek.
So just on the condition survey of the roof, similar to my call for the library roof, I think anything that we do to that roof needs to be future-proofed, buzzword, and that needs to account for the potential that we may wish to use it in the future to install solar panels on. It seems to make sense if, you know, if we're adjusting the roof more generally, you know, it might well be that we optimise the roof for the solar panels as opposed to just, do you know what I mean? So is that something that can be done in that, or because it seems a bit inefficient, if you like, to go out and say, well, we'll get a condition survey, and then we'll go back out and get a structural engineer to have a look at it and say yay or nay on solar panels. I suppose I'm just trying to avoid that kind of doubling up, if it's possible.
Completely see where you're coming from. I think if we get to the point where we're getting structural engineers to look at remedial work that would be needed, I think that's when you'd look at what additional work would you do for solar panels. My only nervousness about delaying it too much is the unknown of what we're dealing with up there. I think at least if you get a minimum of understanding what the condition is, because that might dictate how quickly you might need to move on it or not. That's my only nervousness about it. If there's structural works that will be needed, then by all means we could look at that at the time. That's my own nervousness about it.
It's on you taking it forward to get a quote, is that right?
Yeah, to spend up to £2,000 getting a condition survey of the roof space for delegated authorities, Chair and Vice Chair, to approve the quotes and approve the recommendations that we present you.
Happy to propose. Seconder? Councillor Trimble, all in favour? Lovely.
Yeah, so that's a finance report. So, apologies, I think it's majority me speaking tonight. So we had a fire risk assessment undertaken annually, and it was undertaken last year. As part of that assessment, they did all 3 premises that we own, and they highlighted that a number of our doors have defects, and they range from, could just be a sign that's not on the door, or the gaps in the fire doors need to be minimum 4 millimetres. So some of them are out by just a couple of millimetres. So they've picked up on all of the doors. I didn't think that was realistically practical or from a budget perspective achievable. So I have liaised with our health and safety advisor on this to try and reduce the scope to something more manageable. So he has suggested, and he's also a fire risk assessor, so he's looked at it and he's reduced the scope to just focusing on the evacuation routes of all 3 buildings. And I'm conscious of the aspirations for this building as well, which is potentially moving and changing use. So I've tried to be careful around this building and also just focusing on evacuation routes. So focusing on doors that are unlikely to change whether you change the use or not. So essentially, the recommendation before you is to replace or repair the doors highlighted in the report. And I will emphasise that because replace will be the last resort. Given the defects, it's hopeful that we can work with the appointed contractor and just do some alignment work, or literally just put some signage on. But I didn't want to put that in there. I'd rather give you the worst case scenario. And also, in addition, this would be a phased project over 2 financial years. So we'll basically probably choose the most important floors or the most important doors in each premises in year 1, and then year 2, we'll do the remainder. And that would just be your evacuation routes. It wouldn't necessarily be every single door, because our health and safety advisor doesn't think that's really required. In his view, because the evacuation routes are relatively short, and also because we've got quite a robust fire alarm system, he was less concerned with regards to what has been picked up. But he does agree that there needs to be action taken on at least your evacuation routes.
Questions, Councillor Creek?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, this is dreadful reading, this particular report. So, there's 2 things really for me. One is the Mount Wise Centre was recently refurbished in 2019, 2020, and we didn't know this then?
No, it was completely signed off.
Do we have any comeback? I mean, this is a significant sum of cash. We're talking about 22 grand's worth of remedial works. I mean, this is a... I
think the difficulty is, I don't know if I should say this in public session.
Let's say it in private session then, that's fine.
I'm just, the only thing that we can't necessarily guarantee is there hasn't been any individuals that have done anything to those doors since installation.
Got you. Okay, so let's pick that conversation up. What I suppose my nervousness, other than the horrendous amounts of money that we'll be spending on doors that we've just had installed 5 years ago, would be that we may wish to do something different with the ground floor of Mount Wise, and that may or may not include changing the layout of it. We've just talked about a structural plan for the roof and how on what that might look like, and therefore I would say all of the second floor needs to be discounted on the off. There are some ramifications of some current bits going on in the council that may see other parts of our estate being used in a different way, and so I think it feels like it requires much more debate, and I'm not sure I can say a lot of that in open session here. But I think we need to probably sit down and have a proper hammer out of what it is we want to achieve strategically with our estate before we start going spending lots of money changing doors, and then 6 months later going, well, actually we want that wall moved, or so let's do it as a process. So I would be uncomfortable signing off that sort of spend tonight, not knowing what the strategic plan for the assets are. I don't know what anyone else's thoughts are.
So does the work, is it immediate, has to be done, yesterday, or can we hang fire till we have a...
I mean, ultimately, is your appetite for risk. I mean, the fire risk assessors likely, they're coming around again in this month. They're probably only going to pick up the same doors. Ultimately, I'm not a fire risk assessor. I'm just going on the advice that I've been given. I completely take Councillor Creek's point, and I did my best to try and minimise and just focus on the areas which, even with alterations to floor spaces, we could get away with. But yeah, arguably there might be scope for even more. And I completely take your point, because what I didn't really want to do is change or replace any doors, and then you find that if you've changed a certain layout of a floor, you change your evacuation routes and then require new doors. So I completely get it. I think from my perspective, I'm just kind of putting it out there that these require some attention, and whether it's a case of we discuss it later, or look at a working party or something to just review it in a bit more detail and then come back with a more solid recommendation.
Councillor Creek and then Councillor...
So I think I'd like to propose that we set up a small working party to review this with you, Joe, and the facilities manager too, and that we wrap that up into a strategic view on the assets that we currently run. And I think a likely outcome of that, and I think I'd even be happy at this point, authorising the works on the first and second floor, mindful that I have a slight interest in the first floor of Mount Wise, given that I'm an employee of a tenant. Because we have tenants in that building in those rooms, and I can see that all of those doors are earmarked. As for the ground floor of Mount Wise, this building and the library, I think we need to review that at a working party to understand the strategic direction of those assets moving forward. I don't know how we feel about that.
Well, yes, I mean, I was just going to reiterate that. I mean, if we're going to be asked to vote on something when it all sounds so confusing, and there's obviously a lot more that's got to be discussed privately and amongst individuals, and, you have all the details available, well, and we haven't, I think, you need to come back and vote on these things later, because it all sounds quite serious issues that need to be clarified first.
Thank you.
Sorry, again, just for clarity, what prompted this inspection?
So annually we have to have fire risk assessments done by an external consultant.
And that external consultant's recommendations?
So just to bring it back,
yeah.
So the external consultant recommended that all of the fire doors
yeah.
across every property needs review and replacement. We have a health and safety advisor called Ellis Whittam on retainer,
Yeah.
who also has our contact, if you will, is a fire risk assessor. So I spoke with him to get some further advice to kind of drill this down into a bit more of a phased project, because we don't have the funds to replace every single door
course, yeah.
in every single property. That's just, and he agreed. So he has been the one essentially to draft this. It's really his work that has consolidated this down to key doors, which are protecting your evacuation routes.
So if we don't do anything within a certain timescale, we no longer are compliant under our... That, I guess that's my question.
You could argue that the fire doors currently aren't compliant. In terms of the risk, I'm not a fire risk assessor, there is a risk, but ultimately from our health and safety advisor, he seemed relatively comfortable with the current state of the doors.
Yeah.
So you could have a non-compliant fire door,
Yeah, but
it could still act
protect.
and protect life in that situation, which I think is the majority of these doors.
So it buys us a little bit of time, is what I'm getting at. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? So do you want to do... Oh, did you have one? Sorry.
Yeah, happy to propose the setting up of a small strategic asset working party, remit of which is future of our assets that we currently have, and clearly this issue of the fire doors.
Any, before we sort of vote, going back to the build at Mount Wise as to why within sort of 6 years we're sort of out of date in a sense?
I think, as I tried to tactfully say, since the installation was done by the contractors, I can't guarantee that there hasn't been other individuals that have made alterations to those doors which may have invalidated the warranty.
So that would be tenants, you mean? Or?
I don't think we can say in this board.
Your proposal, we're going to propose a working party, happy to second it. How many on it? 3, realistically? Sometimes you have too many.
Maybe three members, 2 officers.
Yeah, okay. Anybody want to put the names forward, or Councillor Creek? I'll be happy. Councillor Wilton, Councillor Slade.
No,
Okay.
well, 3.
3. Do you want to do it?
I kind of,
I suggest Steve's a builder.
it's kind of my thing.
I just
Not
fiddle
a
with the
fire
hinges.
assessor.
It's fine.
So we'll go Councillor Slade, Councillor Wilton, Councillor Creek. Yeah. You've proposed, I'll second. All in favour? Okay, thank you. Propose that we take some of that discussion, not full discussion, into confidential later. Sorry. Item 12C, it does say about assets and estates. We just wanted to know what the car park income was at South Fistral. Obviously, there was limited advertising this year on Radio Newquay. We're unsure why, but obviously going forward, we need to make sure that we keep that going. So you've got, I'll let Joe run through it quickly, to be honest, because most of the asset review we're going to do in confidential anyway. And then I also asked for a toilet spreadsheet because I wanted to know which toilets had locks on, which do we pay for, how many go into so we could look at the real cost of what the toilets are costing us. But I'm going to propose that we take that into confidential. So we've got a seconder to take that into confidential. Councillor Morris, all in favour? Cheers. So I don't know if you want to say anything about the car park, but I think it's doing quite well.
Sorry, Chair, just I think we've skipped the item before, which was a request from the Sea Cadets.
Oh. me. So the Sea Cadets who meet up there, they pay X amount of money. They want to put some storage under the stairs. So my first question is, anything that they're going to store is under the stairs like fireproofed or anything?
I might have to defer to Louise on this, but no, in terms of, we wouldn't accept anything in there that could be compostable, no. I think from what I gather, it's mainly arts and crafts things that they want to keep in there.
Is under the stairs fireproofed? You don't know?
Well, not in the sense, no. I mean, other than the fire doors within the corridor space, but the actual stairs themselves, no.
And I suppose my question is, you know, they want the arts and crafts stuff. If we were to say, yes, we're happy to do that, we don't want them then to bring further stuff. They're my thoughts, because often I know it's not within the building, but we had storage outside in the containers, and we struggled, didn't we, to sort of get the individuals to remove that. So anybody got any questions? So the proposal is, are we happy for the Sea Cadets to put some arts and crafts storage under the stairs? Am I right in saying what I'm saying? You looked at me.
Yeah, so there are there's three recommendations. The two which is really related to their request, which is, first is storage provision under the stairs, which rightly said needs to be carefully managed. And the second one was whether we would permit them to store a whiteboard in the community space, which they've said they're happy for that to be kind of communal and shared with any other groups that may want to use it.
£5 to £45. We're happy to propose that. Any seconder for that? Councillor Trimble, all in favour? Yep, that's done. Item 2, are we happy for the Sea Cadets to store under the stairs a small amount of kit?
Non-combustible.
Non-compostable, yeah. Seconder for that? Yeah, go on.
Well, presumably there's no minimum term to the amount of time that we're having it there, or I'm just conscious of what the working party on strategic asset management might.
I think we just have to have a very loose agreement that could be terminable at any time.
Second, Councillor Creek, all in favour? And then item 3 is the installation of the whiteboard. How do people feel about that? My personal thing is that they pay for it to be installed, that we don't.
Free whiteboard.
Yeah, but we don't pay for the installation. No. So I'm happy to propose. Seconder, Councillor Creek, all in favour?
One thing on that, do we have to make it sure that they are going to pay for it? Because it doesn't state. That's what we've proposed. Yeah, but it didn't. Okay then. Yeah. So with the caveat that they pay for it. Yeah. Okay.
Touched on South Bistral car park, that there was no advertising this year, but I think we did pretty well there, to be honest. But the rest of it we will talk about in confidential. Any questions on the South Bistral car park? I still do. Just thank the lads and lassies. I can't say, you know, chaps or because they do a great job up there, and they were up there today. And as always, they do a really good job. For me, I know I live quite close, but I think it's a great space because it's multi-use. I know it's a car park, but people do all sorts of things there, like they play football. There's, you know, kids go up and play round us, you know, not when the cars are there, obviously. And long may it remain like that. Correspondence, have we got any? No. And then before we go into exempt, I'm just going to go around the room for any other business. So, any other business? No, bye. Councillor Morris?
Only the one that I've passed on to Joe tonight.
Councillor Wilton? Councillor Creek? Don't disappoint us. Oh.
Just an update. We said that I went to see the Duchy people at Nansleden about their use of glyphosate, and they are no longer using glyphosate, and they are looking to work with us to find glyphosate-free weed control methods. So we're going to work together, and they want to be part, and they've embraced the biodiversity policy, and they're very keen to be part of the whole Newquay-wide movement. So yeah, it's all good.
Really quickly to say, it wasn't in any of the reports, but the Shopwatch radio antenna was successfully relocated to Mount Wise Centre. So Drew might have noticed it, maybe not. But yeah, it's
Your kitchen window.
it's performing as planned. So I think they're quite happy with it.
Going to exempt business, so we'll be switching off from the public.
Do we have to vote on that?
Could you? I haven't finished.
Oh, jeez.
I was just about to say, do I have to read that whole spiel, or can we just say we're going into exempt? I propose we go into exempt. Councillor Slade has seconded it, right behind my back. All in favour?